You go. Dale. I'm gonna start it. Oh. We can, Dale, we can start.
Oh, no. Cold hands, warm heart.
Hello and welcome to the Opportunity Home San Antonio Operations and Real Estate Committee meeting. Before we begin, a few etiquette reminders. This meeting will be recorded in its entirety for the record, and I will now begin the recording.
Recording in progress.
For those on a computer attending via Zoom, please use the microphone on your screen to mute and unmute your microphone. If using the phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute. Live transcription has been enabled for this meeting. To modify your preferences, select Live Transcript in the meeting controls at the bottom of your Zoom window. I will now begin to conduct the Commissioner roll call. Chairwoman Dr. Ana Cha Guzman. Vice Chair Gabriel Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Gilbert Casillas.
Here.
Commissioner Dalia Contreras.
Here.
Commissioner Lauren D. Dantzler.
Present.
Commissioner Olga Kaufman.
Present.
Commissioner Ignacio Perez. Doug Ponick, Board of Commissioners Attorney.
I'm here.
President and CEO Ed Hinojosa Jr.
I'm here.
And our interpreter Joaquin Toronzo. You may now begin the meeting. Thank you.
The Board of Commissioners or its committee may hold a closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071-076 for consultation concerning attorney-client matters, real estate, litigation, personnel, and security matters. The Board or committee reserves the right to enter into closed meeting at any time during the course of the meeting. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
There are no individuals signed up to speak.
Okay. Looks like first order of business, we can go into presentation. We have an update from Alazan by Able City.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mario Peña, partner at Able City. So thank you for having us again. We're enjoying our monthly check-ins with you all, especially as we've made I think the progress we've made this month is of note, and we're happy to share it with you. So let me just take you through a little bit of a brief catch-up, and this thing isn't working here. Thank you. Got it. There we go. Okay. Thanks a lot. All right. Okay, so just a brief overview. As you know, we've gone through, now most of the phases of the master planning project, even through the portions where we start evaluating some designs with our committees and with the community at large. And so we're just at the point where we can say we can, continue to, to finalize, and then it somewhere before the end of November, we have it on our schedule to submit that for your approval. But we think we've got some great consensus, and we've had some great conversations with community and resident committees both. Last night we had our last resident committee meeting. We are expecting to have our next and last community committee meeting on Tuesday. It went quite well. All right, so again, going back, we had a design charrette. This was a public event. We worked with community members and residents to sort of work out the pressures that are sort of exerting themselves on the site, namely this, the floodplain, which is making us demolish about 9 buildings, and then the size of the units. As we increase the size of each of the homes, then we end up, having to sort of expand beyond the 4 walls of the buildings that we have today. So where do we put those extra square footages? And so we worked it out with the community, and I think everyone that began to understand that even though preservation should be a priority, that we needed to start thinking about how to add new buildings to the site somehow, and so we worked that out with them, and we got a lot of great ideas from that exercise, and everyone began to really understand, again, the overall problem we were encountering, even as we tried to preserve. This thing isn't working again. Is there a computer nearby to hit the button? There it is. All right. Okay, so then we went through a community survey, and I'm just going to take you through the 4 key elements that we dug into as we started to develop our design directions. One was, what are your 3 priorities as we reimagine master plan? So improving the streetscape was number 1. Improving green spaces and playgrounds, building more public homes. Those are our top 3, and then including accessibility to more homes. And those 2 things are related, right? But seeing that as our mandate, right, to solve this problem, then we began to develop our options. And then how should the design approach preserve the existing buildings? We wanted to just sort of see, if people could, if there was a difference in people's minds about whether we wanted to preserve the buildings themselves or we wanted to preserve the look and feel of the neighborhood. And so even though there was some desire to preserve the buildings in and of themselves and maybe restore them, there was a good amount of acceptance for making modifications as long as it's within the character of the neighborhood, as long as those modifications sort of fit in to the existing community. And then we had this problem of, do we go 2-story, do we go 3-story? And so there was this general acceptance that 3 stories would be okay as long as we did it sensitively, as long as sight lines weren't interrupted, and and the community, the neighborhood character wasn't impacted negatively by the 3 stories. And then we asked, where should we prioritize park space and amenities? Okay, and there was some consensus, especially among the residents, that we should disperse the additional green spaces throughout the Alazan courts, so that more people had access to them, either right outside their door or within the block, so their kids can go play closer by than they have available today. All right, so then we'll begin this master plan draft update, which we've been developing now for a few weeks. So the first thing is the program, right? The housing mix. And so once everything was said and done, and we included the project that will be developed on the Valero field and in the block over in the Apache Courts field area just behind it, we end up with 556 total homes. So we're really happy that that's 55 additional homes. So we're increasing public housing in San Antonio. We were able to, not only were we able to meet the 501 promise that you all made, we were able to surpass that. But then because we did this by increasing 3 and 4 bedroom units, we ended up with almost 300 additional bedrooms, which is a very significant number. So we are increasing basically the number of beds, right, potential beds by 300. So that's, I haven't done the math on this, but it's over 60% increase in bedrooms. Okay, so moving on. How do we make this happen? This is the site plan to what we're calling the Alazan expansion. This is the project that was submitted to the City of San Antonio for the housing bond, and it's up for consideration. It is 88 units of housing behind the community center on Valero Field and in the block over from that, in that large field in between the homes at Apache. So on the left of your screen you see blue buildings. Those are the existing Apache Courts buildings. And so we are tucking in 3 additional buildings in that spot and creating some green space in between those buildings. And then we are, as you know, we're developing Valero Field as an addition to the Alazan Apache development. So the yellow buildings are 2-story buildings that are fronting the street. So those basically match the character of the Apache buildings surrounding it. and then the two orange buildings in the middle are three-story buildings that are tucked back so you can't see them from the street. And this is just a quick sketch of what that might look like. Again, this was submitted to the San Antonio Housing Bond. Anybody have any questions up to now? Just pause here.
So you are going to save the original front building on Brazos? That will not be, it's going to stay the way it is?
Right, so yes, this is the community center on Brazos. That's the first building you see here, sort of diagonally along Brazos, and then behind it is the new development. But that building would stay intact, and it would continue to serve as the main office for Alazan.
Okay.
Part of the plan includes renovation of the new building, right, as an amenity?
Well, for a future stage, we'll have to look at all of the Alazan area on the south side of Guadalupe, including this building.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'm going to move on to now the main Alazan Court site. So these are the blocks that we've been working with for the last few months. The blue buildings, again, are existing buildings that will be renovated or rehabilitated, and they are concentrated all along the street and along Brazos. Right? It was important for Brazos to keep that historic facade, right, as it is the entrance, the main entrance to the community for the public. The pink building you see are two homes that we're proposing to develop into the community center. So instead of building a new community center, we would rehab that into a community center, which are the four buildings there. The residents and community agreed that that's probably the best place to put the community center since it's across the street from the high school, and it is centrally located in the north-south direction for the courts. All new buildings are in orange, and they are tucked back from the street. Right. And so this is sort of our first rendition of what an improved streetscape would look like. These are restored buildings or rehabilitated buildings, removing the addition of the slanted roofs that were built in the 60s and 70s, and going back to that historic building type with the flat roofs. We do have the plan to keep some of the roof element inside or tucked behind the roof line for any air conditioning ducts or any mechanical equipment that we need to tuck in there. So, but it's done sensitively so that the historic facade is exposed in the front. This is just a rendering of the courtyards where we would have different kinds of elements, and we're working with the community to program those. So some of them might be basketball courts, some of them might be lawns, picnic areas, other amenities. We're working with them to pick which, how they would prioritize that, and that will be in the final report for those recommendations. On the screen here, you see the back of restored buildings on the left, and then the three-story building on the right. So together they create this sort of enclosed courtyard space. Go ahead. Do you have a question, ma'am? You're good? Okay. All right. Sure. Right. Yeah. Right now this is just a sort of an architectural rendition, and we're all of the lighting, anything that is in detail would be worked on during the schematic design phase of the architectural plan after the master plan phase. So then this is one of the one-story buildings typically on the corners that we're restoring and using historic photographs to pull out the original architectural design in the international style of the original architect. And then you can barely notice it here, but there is a little bit of that roof addition just behind that front to make sure that we have a place to tuck in all of our ductwork. All right. Now we have an option where we don't go full restoration in case we have to treat some of these buildings a little differently, and we have to keep some of the roofs that are in place today. So we have a couple of options for you to consider, and they will be in the master plan. We need to go through the first phases of the architectural design phase to study them structurally a little better, to be able to make this determination. We also have a much higher level of detail on construction cost in order for you to help us make a decision between the full restoration, right, and the sort of midway restoration. And we showed this to the community last night. They were happy to have both options to make sure this works. So that's it. That's the plan update to now. I'll leave it up for you all for questions.
What about the, are you implementing mailboxes?
Are we implementing
The
mailboxes?
mailboxes? A different way to
Individual,
receive- yeah.
individual mailboxes.
Yeah.
We
Or
haven't had,
No, like individual or,
or group
yeah,
mailboxes. So we haven't gotten a comment on one preference or the other with those mailboxes, but we need to work with staff to see what is operationally more feasible as well, right? So it's a bit of detail that we haven't gotten into with the residents yet. Yeah. Mm.
You met with the residents last night?
Yes.
Or some of them at least. And their comments with regards to I recognize this is conceptual in terms of the renderings and with the look and preserving the previous buildings. Any comments, positive or negative, on that?
We had some very positive comments. I think everyone was excited to see, especially this image where we were showing the planned improvements on the street with the additional trees and then the sidewalk pulled away from the street. The buildings themselves, I think everyone sees sort of like, coming back and having this sort of very beautiful, dignified, new facade. It was important for them to see, I think, that image of this nice building from, that is historic.
Right.
As opposed to, something that has, just sort of not weathered all that well through so many years. And then that alongside the new 3-story building and see how compatible that is. And so now they understand that the historically preserved buildings could really be just as good as
Right.
the new buildings, right? If we do this correctly. Yeah. So we had a very positive, I think, reaction last night. Yeah. Overall.
Okay.
Now, the redo of the existing buildings, which are cinder block, will you be like sheetrocking on the inside and stucco on the outside to take that cinder block look away?
So the interior of the buildings would need to be sheetrock. We need to create a cavity to insulate them. So yes, to your first question, as far as the stucco on the outside, our first intent is to go to the historical record to see what was there originally, and then try to match that as close as possible.
And again, this is a personal, whatever the residents predominantly want was probably really important to the design. Speaking to the design, will there be some concern that when they see new, that we're keeping the skeleton of the old and then renovating it, so to speak, bringing it back, but preserving the past? What happens when they see the new? Do you think, have they toured new? Have they looked at, say, legacy and and maybe that's just a question for them, say,
Right.
do you want to live in a refurbished this, or do you want to live in a new this? And I mean, that's probably something important. I know that we're trying to preserve it, and the new units, rather than refurbished, renovated units,
Right.
will look brand new. So from the inside out, there'll be no difference. I mean, it'll be all new.
As far as lifestyle and amenities, they will be exactly the same. I think that the aesthetic look of the building on the outside for the restored building, if you see historic photographs, and I don't think I have one here today, there's some beautiful photographs of when this was first built. Here's one right here. So if you look to this, and if we aim for this, then, and we also aim for the new buildings to then use this template as a guide for design, then everyone will feel like this is a one place, not two places, right? So then, and the 3-story buildings will look like they were built, right alongside these. So aesthetically, I think our goal would be that there would be no distinction. And on the inside, there will be no distinction. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
As far as the presence, the preference from the residents, I will try to be as good ambassador as I can for the residents. But so their primary concern, again, you saw the surveys, right? We're hitting all of their primary concerns. Do we have washer dryers? Is this place safe and secure? That goes a little bit outside of our scope of work, right? But we've been telling them that we're going to do our very best to make sure that this is designed to promote a safe and secure place. Some of it we have to work alongside you to give you all their comments about safety and security. But I think everyone in the last two meetings has just been very excited that this is going to happen, and that we've been telling them you're going to get all of those items you've been telling us as far as your daily quality of life will be met in the restored buildings, and that's really all that they've signaled that their priorities were, and so they're excited to see this.
So, was there mention of elevators and number two, central heat and air? Anything like that?
Yes to both in
Okay.
different contexts.
Okay.
So I'll take the heating and air. That was a quick check, yes.
Okay.
All right, and a quick check, yes, on our side that we would be providing it. So yes to both of those. They mentioned it, and we're responding with it. The elevators. When we said 3-story, people began to have this conversation about elevators. And so we are, right now by code, the way that we are planning to design this, there would be no need for an elevator. As we move along further in the design, if we feel like the proportion of units that are accessible needs to be increased, then we would maybe have a conversation about including that. But right now, they're not necessary. And I don't think that they will be necessary because we've got enough units on the ground with ground level access to not make elevators necessary.
First off, I want to commend you on the work you and your staff have done. And the open house that you did at Alazan on the San Antonio Neighbors Together event got some positive press.
Yes.
On that, and heard a couple of the residents on the news feed. Thank you for updating the numbers up there, because one of my main questions to one of your architects was that I want to make sure that this is more of what the residents want and not the community as a whole, because if it would be hard for me to vote for something and the residents don't want it.
Absolutely, yes.
So, and I'm noticing that we're seeing more of the residents wanting a feel of both the new and the old. And I like what I'm seeing, so thank you for the work you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Same. Thank you so much for treating the community with the dignity and respect that they deserve, and giving their voice space at the table, having their ideas come to mind, playing back what you heard, and making sure that, our translation of what we heard is in alignment with what they said and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The last meeting you said is this Thursday. Is it open for visitors?
So the last community committee meeting is on Tuesday night. And so none of our meetings are closed-door meetings. We like to invite people to participate, but they're supposed to be for people that have gone through the process with us, because they've sort of building on itself.
Yep.
So doors are always open, but it's meant for the committee that we've been working with through the process, right?
And that date, time, and location is on the website, or?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Where is it at?
They're held at the, is it called the UTSA building on Guadalupe? I forget the name.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the UTSA Learning Center at on Guadalupe. And it's at 6 p.m. on Tuesday.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it.
Right,
So far, it's been great.
Thank you very much. All right.
Item number 4, update and presentation regarding Lincoln Heights by Saldani and Associates.
Good afternoon. My name is Marissa Saldana, and I will be presenting on behalf of Saldana Associates Architects. And I'm presenting on the resident outreach portion of the Lincoln Heights Housing Master Plan project. The rest of the team is in attendance and will be able to answer specific questions as well. As you will recall, we initiated our outreach by holding a couple of meetings, providing food and snacks and inviting the residents to come and give their feedback. At that time, we had only had 42 families who attended and responded. So we have since changed our approach and redoubled our efforts, and we enlisted the help of 6 resident aides who are going door to door. We've also gone door to door as well, and we hand out surveys and ask them for their input. And we are still collecting surveys. As of yesterday, we have gotten 155 back, and we're still analyzing all of the data and all of the input from our residents. Our thoughts were that perhaps the residents would be more willing to open their doors to familiar faces that they knew and had seen around the residents, and help us get start that conversation, find out where their real concerns are, and what their thoughts are on living at Lincoln Heights. So they've been our emissaries, and it's been very fruitful. Each survey is dated and signed by the head of household, and each is comprised of 24 questions and asked in several different ways in order to get an accurate reading of their true feelings and thoughts regarding their experience of living at Lincoln Heights. So the main areas of investigation are functionality of the individual dwelling, focusing on areas that are functioning well or areas that need improvement, in which amenities improvements, upgrades, modernization, or conditions requiring rehabilitation are most needed or desired. Their overall experience of living within the complex. So some of our areas of focus are on scale, noise, privacy, security, accessibility, outside common areas, entryways, landscaping, shade, access to parking or transportation. We are also considering the different age groups and their particular viewpoints, their needs. And we also wanted to know their level of attachment to their structures and whether they would be amenable to new structures being built to replace the old structures, or conversely, would they prefer to rehab their existing structures. And we also left space for open requests, criticism, suggestions, any of their thoughts. So although we're still collecting survey responses, some early trends have started to emerge. The plurality of the responses so far have indicated that people have an intangible attachment to Lincoln Heights. So one respondent said, "I like living at Lincoln Heights because my babies are growing up here." And another respondent said that although she had particular criticisms of the fact that her dwelling was not ADA compliant, she used a walker, she said that she felt blessed to be there. So she had very positive feelings. And another respondent said, when we asked, how do you feel about whether your structure has this historical significance and should be preserved, she said, well, yes, but change is good. So people are open. People are open to making their dwellings more livable, perhaps modernizing, upgrading, just making their lives a bit, a bit easier. And then, of course, some people were more blunt, and they just said, that we're fine with absolutely new buildings. So, yeah, there was a lot of that. So at this time, we're still taking in new surveys. We just received more this morning. And so we're planned to present all of our data that we've collected so far to stakeholders on Saturday the 29th, and also get their input since they are community leaders. Scott Kielbasa, the West End Action and Hope, and Pastor Robinson. So let's see. And so this is how we've divided the areas for the residents, and they've been very enthusiastic, very helpful, and wonderful. Here they are. So this is the site, and our research has indicated that 7 structures are in floodplain and will need to be removed. So that's figuring in prominently as well in our master planning. Those 7 structures. And possibly even utilizing some of the vacant lots in the surrounding area as well.
Can you back up to the previous slide?
Sure.
You said 7 buildings that are in the floodplain. So are y'all considering not just removing them, or maybe reconfiguring? So, because that floodplain doesn't take in that whole area, but it takes in a portion of it.
So, let's see.
And I say that just from a standpoint of that land's there already. If it's not all in the floodplain, maybe a reconfiguration.
It was that.
Yeah. We've been talking to the people over there at the City Hall in charge of the FEMA plan, and they provided us a whole lot of information. It's almost, according to them, their opinion about how to improve the buildings, you cannot invest more than 50% of the value of the buildings. If you want the buildings to stay, we have to improve them mechanically, electrically, bring them up to date, central air conditioning, and that sort of thing. If that exceeds 50% of the value of the building, they won't accept it.
No, maybe I missaid it.
Yes.
Reconfiguring and not renovating, but reconfiguring. In other words, if the 7 buildings have to be demolished because they are in the floodplain,
Yes.
the floodplain doesn't take in that whole area. Maybe 2 or 3 buildings could stay, or 4 buildings. 2 or 3 new buildings could be built on that property, thus still allowing for us to keep some of that property.
No,
with
we were
residents.
told no new building will be built in the flood area at all.
Well, no, I'm not saying in the flood, just outside the flood area.
Outside, yes, of
Because that
course.
flood area doesn't appear to,
Yeah.
is that whole area in the flood zone?
Yes, sir. We have a sketch of our master plan to show the locations of what we are ready to propose to you, where the new buildings will be, 2 stories and 3 stories in the side, outside the floodplain. So that's a plan that we'd like to present to you next time.
Next time, okay.
Yes, sir. But they were very clear about not building new buildings in the flood area at all.
Well, that's understandable. We know that you can't build in
We
there.
were proposing to that area that is going to be vacated by buildings like everybody wants green space, everybody wants a green field for the kids to play. One of the problems very unique problem at Lincoln is that the kids on the west side are having difficulty to go through the bridge all the way to Garrett. Several families asking me whether they can request to move their units to the west side, because the kids can have access to the Garrett. So everybody was saying, give us some more green space so the kids can play. There's a great division between the toddlers and 2s and 3s, 4s, and the teenagers that more or less they take over the Garrett, and the kids are not, they don't have a chance to play with in the same playground. So that's a problem that we need to resolve with the master plan. How are we going to provide a playground area for the little ones on the west side? Excuse me, on the east side.
Okay. Thank you.
And so we're going to continue talking to the FEMA people and see if they can, for example, if we provide a green area with ball fields and all that, it has to be 6 inches above the floodplain. We cannot build even a green area. They're resisting our efforts to build a green area just plain. So as a result, we figure that it's going to be a foot of elevation of dirt to bring it up to floodplain.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the picture that shows the actual floodplain? Okay.
Okay. So just take it all in.
That's the official plan that they provided us at the Office of FEMA.
That's what I needed clarity on, because I wasn't entirely sure if it took it all in or not, but it does. Okay.
So, and I think the building that's the southernmost in the floodplain is our main office. It's not residential.
Okay.
The one down in the bottom.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. You can.
Okay.
Is that the whole presentation?
Oh, yes, that concludes it.
I'm sorry if I missed this last time. I don't think it was at the last meeting that you all presented, but do you have like a timeline for community engagement, a visualization of your overall process and what, I feel like I understand the zoom in right now of like our original engagement yielded 42 families. It wasn't enough resident voice. We initiated 6 resident aids. Now we have 155 surveys back.
Correct.
That's like a very zoomed in update. What's the larger process of the way you're going to be engaging the community from beginning to end? And where are we at in that timeline?
So we did promise all of the residents that we've talked to that they will be a part of the process going forward, because they were very interested. And so we said, okay, as we come up with ideas for the master plan, we are going to be requesting further feedback. So a lot of them provided their emails, their phone numbers, so that we can let them know and invite them back to give more feedback as it develops.
Do you have a process that you're following for, like, are you just making it up as you go, or do you have here's how we engage, here are the dates, here are the times, so that residents have that in advance and are aware?
It's been somewhat fluid because, we expected a lot more engagement in the first 2 meetings, and we were a little bit disappointed by, the slow kind of response in that regard. So we've been getting a lot of responses going door to door. So we've in 2 weeks we've gotten over 100. So we figure another 2 weeks and we should be, fairly close to a huge, number.
So what will it look like? Like, there's the initial, let's get residents' feedback. There's your interpretation of the feedback, the playing back to residents. Here are our takeaways. Are we right? Did we misunderstand something, right? Like, aligning on my interpretation is aligned to what you want and said. Talking about design options, having them have awareness into trade-offs so that there's community buy-in. I'm just trying to get an understanding for what your process will look like holistically, because that matters to us greatly in terms of this type of work in our communities.
Yes. Well, do you want to? Okay.
Well, our first stakeholders meetings would really tell us a lot, not just the residents, but the community in general. Last time we had a great representation, even from city council people. They had 2 representatives, Pastor Robinson, Kielbasa, and all the community members, and they had a lot to say about what we need to do in terms of how do we improve the units. They were asking me about budgets, and of course we couldn't answer that question at all. So please wait for us until the next meeting, the stakeholder meetings on Saturday the 29th. That's going to tell us a lot about our progress. So our plan is to have 2 or 3 master plan options for you to review at the end of November.
So, just one quick question and then a comment, Ed. What was the language? What were the languages that the survey was administered in?
Well, we did it in person, so it's in English. And then a lot of our resident aides are bilingual, so they will interpret for the residents as needed. But we can send you a copy of that if you'd like.
It would probably be good just to make sure that pieces are translated so that residents can read it and verify that what people are, if there's a little trust sometimes, and I'm just going by spoken word, it's helpful for people to be able to have something in writing that's also in Spanish. And I'm just, Ed, very curious about if the goalposts that you shared, which is really helpful, right? By November, what was it, 30th that you said? 29th.
Yes.
That we would have these options. It'd be great to have an understanding of how the community will be engaged between now and then. I didn't get a concrete understanding of what that would look like. And so that, what do they say, the best, surest, having no plan is also a plan, right? And so having something a little more concrete, you have some really great pieces to work off of. You've got these 6 leaders who are committed, who helped you go to door. Now you have other people engaged. It would be great to have an understanding of what the process will look like between now and then. So if there's feedback that the team has for you or an expectation based on the contract that we want to make sure we're all in alignment on, we can make that adjustment before we're further in the process.
Yes, thank you. We will.
Okay. Questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to individual items. It looks like consideration and appropriate action regarding Resolution 6286. Stephanie Rodriguez, Director of Assisted Housing Programs.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dablin, do you have the slides for this one? Okay. So today the item I'm bringing is our project-based voucher payment standards. So as you guys are aware, previously we came forward with our small area FMRs, which is the small area fair market rents. Those are going for regular vouchers or for weather searching. These are restricted to our project base, so specific contracts that we have, the vouchers are assisted at those specific properties. And we review payment standards on those every year as well. So these are the payment standards that we're reviewing for this program. And HUD allows you to use either the small area fair market rents or the main area fair market rents. We have not elected to use the small area fair market rents since our properties are a little bit spread out. In using this, the main area fair market rents allows us to have the one standard across, and it is higher in some of those areas to allow for more options. Sorry. Now on this one, just so you can see the previous year and the current year, the payment standards did go up significantly from last year. And this is, as you can tell from markets, everything has been changing. And what these payment standards we use for is when we're updating our contracts. Every year as the properties come on board for their annual, they're allowed to request for updates to their rents. And so we use the fair market rents and a rent reasonableness test in order to verify that the rents they're requesting are reasonable and within that limit. So this sets the amount for us to do those comparisons. There is a financial impact, and this would be an 8.2% increase, which is not as high as I thought it was going to be based on the market changing, but it does show a significant increase in those rents to allow for residents to be able to still lease there and the contract to move forward. Any questions on the fair market rents? The Housing Authority does.
To clarify, residents won't feel the increase, but
so the way so it's different on when you have a regular voucher. There's your portion payment standard, utility allowance, and then we do like a test to go with that does the lower of market or the gross rent. On project base, it's a lot simpler. It's the contract rent and then their portion of the rent. And so usually when that contract rent goes up, that we're paying the difference.
So the 918 that you showed on the new for the 1-bedroom, that's the maximum that they can get an apartment that's worth 918, then they pay a portion, and Opportunity Home pays the rest through the voucher?
So on this one, it's the contract rent that they're allowed to request up to. So when they go through their like annuals, or when we're setting up, like if we did a new property and we go through that rent analysis in order to determine contract rents for those specific 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms under that contract, this is the maximum amount we would allow them to go up to under a payment standard, but we still do a rent reasonableness test to verify that what they're requesting is a reasonable rent. Then the 27.5% would be the resident's portion, and then we pay the difference between the contract rent and their portion.
Because nowadays, you don't find very many one-bedroom apartments for that price.
So the 918 is for an efficiency. Now, a lot of our contracts that we work with are properties that we work with in order to try to get through those rents so that it is reasonable for those residents on resident side, and then what's under the fair market rents. It is a lot higher. You can see that difference. And we work with the properties on those because we still do those tests to verify the rents.
Because I know a lot of apartment complexes that were charging like $800-900 are going, $1,000 and up nowadays, and so it's.
She wanted me to remind. So these are definitely we work with these properties, so they're usually either managed by us or we have some sort of position in that property, and we want our rents to be affordable, not just necessarily for those that are the project based, but also for the community itself. So that's why we have them at fair market rents, what would be reasonable.
But could that be why we're having trouble finding units for people with vouchers?
So these are separate vouchers. The regular vouchers, they can go out and search on regular landlords, they're third-party landlords. These are project-based, so they're specifically tied
Specific
for this,
projects.
for that project.
Okay.
And so then we can make sure that we can get those leased up for
Sorry
residents.
for the misunderstanding.
No, it's okay.
Last month, we also, a couple of months ago, we raised the payment standards on the regular vouchers. So I think they're around 110 to 118%, depending on the area of town, the zip code. And the payment standards, Stephanie, can you clarify, that's the amount Saha pays, and the resident pays an additional piece?
So the payment standard is what's allowed for subsidy-wise to go up to. Normally what the properties, when we work with them, they try to set their fair market rents at the fair market rent, like payment standard. And so we work with them when they're going through that, but it is the amount that's allowed up to be paid for subsidy. And then just for the fair market rents we came before, we did raise those to the 110%. They did come out with a new study. You're going to be seeing that probably later in the year when we come out with our analysis on how we're going to do those groupings.
Wait, say that part again, because I noticed we went to 100%.
So
You're saying there's another study that'll be done?
So every year that HUD does a study, the one that we did for the 110% was a previous study that they had done, but we wanted to raise the amounts that we could allow. So we went up to 110% of that previous study. They've now done their study, and they're going to do new rents, new fair market rents for the SAFMR. And so we're going to be coming with those, and there may be a further increase from that 110.
See where that's at. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that just means that we're assisting more for the residents to cover. Any questions?
Thanks, Stephanie, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll go to item number 6, consideration appropriate action.
I believe it's an
regarding-
action item, sir, so you need approval.
Oh, this is an action, oh, my bad. Then I'll entertain a motion.
Entertain a motion for item number 5.
I second.
We have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, now you're up. Resolution 6287, welcome, George.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today, we're asking for your consideration and approval of Resolution 6287, authorizing the contract for recertification processing service to Nan McKay and Gilson's Software Solutions, DBA Gilson Property Management Services. Originally, this solicitation went out on July 26. And this was posted on Opportunity Homes e-procurement website, the Heartbeat, Narrows e-procurement website, and directly solicited to 153 vendors. At the conclusion of the solicitation period, a total of 3 respondents were received. These respondents were evaluated, and at initial review, one of the respondents was deemed non-responsive, as the proposal did not include pricing in the response as required in the solicitation. The remainder of the responses were evaluated on qualification and experience, the respondents' proposed staff qualifications, price proposal, and the respondents' proposed SWIMBY utilization plan. On September 13 of this year, Resolution 6278 was approved, utilizing the President and CEO's delegated approval authority, authorizing the award of the contracts to both Gilson Software Solutions and Nan McKay and Associates for the recertification processing services. At which point it was decided that the initial recertification processing services the estimated amounts were not going to be deemed adequate for our need. Thus, this request would increase the amount necessary for the completion of the recertification process services and replacement, and will replace the original approval made by the CEO. And Ms. Rodriguez will talk to you about the scope of work.
So to give you background on this, it's not just for our assisted housing programs. What we're looking at is for our Beacon, public housing, and assisted housing programs for this contract. What we're doing is we're trying to do for recertifications. We normally send them out 120 days. This is where families would redo their income in order for us to redetermine what their portion is and what our portion is. As you know, we've been working through a lot of getting our staff on board, and Beacon has been getting a lot of properties coming on board. And so having that staff to be able to do those certifications, we're looking to see if we can use these contracts in order to assist with that. And then staff that we currently have can focus on their training. The new hires can go through that process and making sure that they're getting their quality control done on files. And then also so that we can focus on getting vouchers issued for residents for the staff that are in-house. And then they would handle our future recertifications to do for residents that are staying in place.
Okay, any questions?
I'm assuming this is this a planned expense budget wrapped into our budget, or is this something where we're requesting to use different funds? What are the budget implications?
I'm going to let Brandy answer that one.
From a budget standpoint, and I'll let Brandy go through the details, but we are understaffed, so we have excess funding that was allocated to staffing that has not been unused, that has not been used. But.
So Ed just took the words right out of my mouth. So it is about, we're trying to balance the shortage of our staff and then using this contract.
Great.
And then, of course, since it will be multi-year, it will be included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
I motion to move to, what is the official language? I feel like I don't know what to say in committee meetings. I motion to entertain item
No,
number
so you would move to approve.
Approve, thank you.
Yeah.
Move to approve resolution.
As long as you all seem to know what you're doing.
Okay.
I don't interfere.
I motion to approve item number 6.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 6287 carries. On to item number 7, consideration and appropriate action regarding Resolution 6288. Hector and George are back.
Thank you, sir. Board members, as you all recall, the Department of Housing and Urban Development does encourage us to utilize cooperative contracts when it meets the needs of the Housing Authority. Today, we're asking for your approval to consider the award for HVAC products, installation, labor-based solutions, and related products and services to Train for the award of $2 million. This is for a period of 1 year. With the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year terms. And to talk about the scope will be Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a request to enter an agreement with Train Commercial for commercial services and HVAC. Train is a high-capacity international outfit that has a local office here in San Antonio. We've contracted with them in the recent past, for commercial services at our mid-rise and high-rise apartment buildings, most of which are seniors. And this contract allows us to do more commercial type HVAC projects, not necessarily residential. We have other contracts for residential type work. Train specializes in these type commercial projects. So we've done things in the past like replace chiller equipment, large ton chiller equipment, boilers. We're working with them now actually here in the central office building to replace digital controls, going from pneumatics to VAVs. And so a nice benefit of the work that we do with Train is the equipment they install when they're replacing or updating it increases efficiency and provides a lot of energy efficiency. The City of San Antonio adopted the 2018 IECC, the International Energy Conservation Code, and so we abide by those codes. When we do large projects with them, engineers are typically involved that can provide commissioning services to inspect their work, to provide testing and balancing, and then the city requires certain large projects have to actually provide commissioning reports to the city to make sure that we're abiding by all the local building codes. So this is an important contract, allows us to maintain the comfort of our residents in our mid-rise and high-rise buildings. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions, commissioners? I'll entertain a motion to...
Make a motion to approve.
We have a first.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Looks like...
I think the only thing that came to mind with those two, and I'm thinking about the last meeting that we had when we bring up procurement contracts, like the thing that is shared. I know it's in our packet, but for public awareness, like if there was an RFP, if there was a, this was solicited, this is what we heard back, we followed the procurement process. I know it's in our packet. I was looking up like who applied, what was the score. We're recommending these two because we've done work with them before, right? We have that in our packets. I don't know that everyone who's paying attention or, zooming in is aware that we're following procurement processes. It's typically a part of the language at the presentation level, so just kind of elevating that piece. It's in our packets and I saw it, but just,
okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
So others know.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to the reports. I believe we have no discussion item. Resident concerns, of course. All right.
I just have one comment I'd like to make. Has to do with special accommodations. Once a special accommodation is approved, I feel that the department or staff should follow up to make sure that it's been taken care of. And residents shouldn't have to wait 2 months out and still waiting for a special accommodation to be taken care of. I feel that maybe there should be some type of follow-up for residents on that to make sure that staff on the property has taken care of it, and if not, why not?
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for that feedback, and we will figure out a way to get that into our procedures.
Any other resident concerns? Go ahead.
No resident concern, just like a thank you to the team. I received some information I work in the school system, and there was a school that reached out asking for support for a resident and just leaving their personal details out, forwarded that to the team. The team responded swiftly, and they didn't even just solve that issue in a timely manner. They took a step back and said, is there something about our systems and structures that we can change as a result of being aware of this issue? And they are doing that through the policy review process. And so I just want to shout out the team it was resolved within a week. And then they didn't just stop there. They kind of went above and beyond to look at other processes and protocols. And that's just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a great team.
Okay, let's go to the procurement activity report.
The report is in your packet. George, is there anything you'd like to point out that is of particular interest in the report?
I did have one question on there, just on the current solicitations, you indicated that there are two. One for the fleet vehicles and then the interior exterior design and purchase management services for Snowden. And then there's an intrusion protection security camera for multi-level properties. So that's the second one, it just encompasses all of that?
Yes, sir. So we actually have four. You should have four solicitations that were currently solicited during that time when the document was created. It is the interior and exterior design and purchasing management services for Snowden apartment. That is one.
Okay.
There's the intrusion protection and security cameras for multi-level properties, the fleet vehicles, the 2023 models, and there's also the automatic doors for Victoria Plaza as well. And that's of the date that the report was created, sir.
Okay. Okay, that was just my question. I had noticed that on the current solicitations. I just had a question. Thank you.
So just for the committee's information, we are planning to bring back a more detailed description of our procurement process to a future committee meeting so that we can walk through that process with the committee. We're also planning to bring back more detailed presentation of each of our special programs. So that would be public housing, Section 8, the Beacon portfolio and how that works. And I think we'll bring one to each committee meeting, and it'll be spread out over several months.
Okay. Is there anything under schedule of units under development that we need to be aware of? We're good?
We do have some news that we closed Snowden.
Okay, well, that's good news. Hey, thanks. All righty, without any other items, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Sorry.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.